Hello, everybody. This is the Nano Blitz, coming to you live from Nate's kitchen studio.
La Casa de something. Ranchero Azul.
Yeah.
Which are two completely different words.
There is no Dana, only Azul. So, hey, yeah, it's the Nano Blitz. I'm Tim. I'm one of your hosts. With me, as always,
Is Nate. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Thank you, Tom Cruise.
Thank you, Tom Cruise.
I had to get that in there.
Speaking of celebrities, I don't know if you saw this or not. I think I sent you the information, but we got our first
yes,
unofficial celebrity sponsorship today.
That's what Tim's gonna call it here. Okay.
Well, I like to think he probably was hanging out with James Van Der Beek and Ryan Tannehill and Tom Cruise, and they were like, "Hey, have you heard this podcast? You'd be interested in it." And so then, Deion Sanders Jr., or Primetime Jr. as I call him, liked the blog that we put up about my beta experience, which was great. He liked the tweet about it. So, I'm not saying that it's a celebrity a celebrity sponsorship, but I'm not saying that it's not
Verified. You see
He's
what
verified. He's got the blue check mark. If I'm not mistaken, he is a ratings adjuster for the Madden game. So I thought he was. I think he might be one of the guys that they send to the sidelines every once in a while. He just games that he can go to. He'll go and he'll basically get in for free, and like he couldn't already, but and he'll pay attention to what players are doing, and he'll put those in his notes, and he'll email that to the two guys that matter, and then we go from there. It's a little
foreshadowing there.
Foreshadowing. Oh man.
We're gonna keep this positive though.
Right, yeah, positively awful.
I'm going to keep it positive because I'm just going to talk more about NHL 20 because let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues. let's go Blues, and hey, let's go franchise features at NHL 20. That's the ticket. Oh gosh, if you hear us saying this, you would think that we're not excited for Madden 20. The truth is, I'm very excited for Madden 20. I'm more excited for this Madden than I have been for any Madden that I can in the recent years. Madden 18 and 19, it was like, do I really still want to do this? And then Madden 20, so after having that beta experience, I was like, this is the best. I'm going to just jump right into it here. This is the best Madden experience I've had on this console, on the PlayStation 4 generation.
I didn't get to play the beta, so I wasn't as cool as Tim was here.
Well, nobody's really this cool, Nate, so don't feel bad.
I mean, goose hell no.
I got the beta key because I was inverted.
Got a great Polaroid of that. No, that was actually pretty sweet how you got that. So that's a great So I'm gonna say my little bit on this here and everything like that before you talk about how you got the beta. Betas are just kind of given out over Twitter.
Yeah.
On sheets of paper that are taken photos of, that kind of thing. It's the only beta that I really know that does that.
It's definitely an EA thing.
Yeah, and so I was sitting there and I was like, should I try? Should I even try? And I was like, I am not going to put my head through that ringer. And so I didn't. Because I had that thought and I was like, man, they're coming out every 15 minutes or every hour. And I'm like, people aren't able to get them and people are complaining about no Xbox codes. And
right.
Cool for the community. I'm glad that you can have that little moment where you could have your video or whatnot, and you as part of that development team and everything like that can have an interaction with a fan and stuff like that. That part totally cool with.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's actually great. However, people hoard those things.
Yes, they do.
There's a lot of falsification of those, and they even say that do not buy a code. People are still going to do that. So
yeah,
it's promoting an environment where I don't necessarily fully agree with it. I think it could be done better. But
yeah. Well,
I'm going to remain positive on this.
yeah. Well, I think just take it to a positive place with that topic then, because I put this in the article that I wrote, the blog post I wrote on our website, which is thenanoblitz.com. That was thenanoblitz.com if you're taking notes at home. Looking
Deion
at you,
Sanders
James.
Jr. has read it.
Yeah. Looking at you, James Vanderbeek, take notes. That's actually something I touched on. Last year felt much worse. Last year felt like it was just a free-for-all for paper pages full of codes,
Yeah.
and you were going to be lucky if you got one. It sucked. That really sucked. That was really difficult. A lot more people who had beta codes this year did contests that required you to do something, to either name a trivia thing or like the contest that I entered was so Michael Young, creative director of the game, the Blues had just won the Stanley Cup. Go Blues. Play Gloria. Right? So
I'm wearing a shirt that says that.
So Michael Young, St. Louis guy, who I automatically love because of that.
Hat trick. Jaden Shorts. Hat trick.
He put out a
Hey buddy. Hey Betty. We're still here.
yeah, we're still here.
Anyway.
And while we're here, we're gonna finish this podcast. So he put out a contest wearing all his Blues stuff, and he basically said, "Hey, I know you're gonna say it's the Blues winning the Stanley Cup, but give me a brief description of your favorite sports moment, and if I like the story, I will send you a code in your DMs." So I wrote a story about how it was like November 24th, 1997, 96, 1996, second year the St. Louis Rams were in existence after moving here from LA. I got to go see the Packers and the Rams play. That's the year that the Packers ended up winning the Super Bowl. I had been a Packer backer up till that point because we didn't have a team until a year prior. So all I had was Packers gear. I didn't have any Rams gear yet, so I wore all my Packers stuff to the game. And St. Louis fans were really understanding about that, and plus I was a kid. I was only 15 at the time, so people didn't harass me about it. They just enjoyed the fact that we could all go watch football together in St. Louis again. It was a great feeling. And my dad took me to that game, and that was just a really fun thing. Within seconds of sharing that with him on Twitter, he sent me a code via DM and said, "I miss the St. Louis Rams. Let's go Blues. Enjoy the beta." And I was like, hey, thanks very much. Let's go Blues. And I've seen Michael Young actually liked some different tweets about Dan Kroenke being a jerk and things. So I appreciate his perspective as a St. Louis fan. I will say, Michael, if you're listening to this, I know you're probably in the same room with Vanderbeek and
Tannehill.
Yeah, and
definitely Tannehill.
Primetime Junior's probably stepped out of the room to get you a drink or something. But since you are a St. Louis guy, let's talk about that St. Louis relocation for a minute. Let's get us some more features there for relocating a team in St. Louis. Just saying. Anyway, long story still long. I got a beta code that way the day that the beta came out, and that's how I got in. So I felt like that it was a better community experience because of that. I felt like it created moments where you really interacted and had that personal touch with somebody from the development team or a celebrity who was given codes. Guys like Juju Smith-Schuster had some codes to give out, things like that. So
yeah, because he handed them out
all at once. Yeah, and then he didn't have one for himself.
Yeah.
It was better than last year, but the way they chose who's in the beta, you could get a code by going to EA Play.
Mm-hmm.
You could get a code by doing the Twitter stuff. Or you could randomly get it in your email if it's attached to an EA account, with special emphasis on players that they know were competitors in the Madden tournaments and that had placed in Madden tournaments and things. So is it still the best way to get a beta feedback? Maybe, maybe not. I do know that only having a 3-day beta with that one of those days being a greeting card holiday with Father's Day, that maybe you're not getting a lot of good feedback because people are only getting to spend very little time with the game.
I don't know. I didn't get any time, Tim. Tell me how that time was.
That time was fun. I had a lot of fun, man. And like I said, I think I said it early in this recording already. Madden 20, I think, is going to be the best Madden on this generation of console. Hands down. It played the best of any game that I've played from a Madden perspective. I think the first thing that was awesome was gameplay. Gameplay was awesome. Gameplay was great on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that was going to be my biggest question.
Right. So on the offensive side of the ball, passes and pass trajectories went much better. I could do things with lower rated players that I didn't feel I could do before because of the rating shift that they've made. I used a pretty low level quarterback. Drafting, man, if you look at that rating shift, drafting felt awful because how low the players were rated when you got them. Like, I only had, like, you're lucky. Only your first, second round guys are going to be 70 plus overall. That's it. Most everybody else is going to be 60s or below. And that's fine if they develop properly, right? Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out a little bit in the game. But gameplay, smoother, better motion. This is what I thought real player motion would feel like, as opposed to last year's real player motion felt more, how do you say it? On a line, felt more rigid and stiff.
Okay.
This felt a lot more fluid. Animations felt much better.
Yeah, so you don't get that PS4 Pro kind of almost semi-pause type thing for the animation.
Didn't happen to me once. That usually happens to me maybe twice a game, where with the PS4 Pro, the game on Madden 19 it'll pause. The audio will still be going, but the game stops and pauses, and then everything speeds up to catch up. That didn't happen to me at all. Something else that didn't happen to me is I was not sucked into a tackle animation on the line one time. Did not happen. Never happened. You have to be closer to somebody to tackle them. Animation doesn't just trigger when you're within 2 yards of them. So that felt much better. I told you about a play where I ran a little screen pass, and the running back, instead of getting caught on the pulling guard, he actually put his hand on the guard's back and went around him. Mm-hmm. And it was a really cool thing. Now, he still shifted a little bit when he caught the ball, but he was open and he should have got the ball. So the shift didn't bother me that much. It seemed pretty minimal. So
he should always catch the ball if he's on Tim's team.
Yeah.
That's what he's really saying.
Yeah. Well, of course he should. And then on the offensive side of the ball, pass rush felt pretty stout.
Okay.
And you've probably seen this around. A lot of people like or hate the pass rush. They either love it or they hate it. What it does is it makes you get rid of the ball faster, which is an actual football thing. It feels more like football in that regard. The couple questions around it I had was, we don't have X Factor abilities for offensive linemen yet, but Swami said that at least 10 offensive linemen will get them at some point this year. So there's nothing to counteract X Factor players on the other side of the line, unless your quarterback has something, which very few do. But those players can get in on you really fast. And I was giving up probably 4 to 5 sacks a game by the time I was done, and that feels maybe like a lot.
A little bit more like real life. 3 to 5.
Yeah, but there were some games where I gave up 7 or 8.
How did you find that play action helped out or anything like that, or
play action felt about the same. Play action didn't.
That's 19.
Yeah, not. I guess it probably is better.
Okay.
It just did not stand out to me as being better.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Doesn't give me hope. Sorry.
Well,
I'm trying to be positive.
yeah, I'd say take a close look at play action when you get in there. And I'll be honest, I didn't do any RPOs because I didn't want to have to learn them. I had 3 days to play the beta.
Come on, Tim. You got to be like me. You got to learn those RPOs.
And I will when the game comes out officially. I wanted to check out some other features in the game and do that. So here's the thing. The pass rush is difficult, but if you get rid of the pass rush, if you dumb down the pass rush, you're going to carve up that defense because that defense, the zones don't play that much smarter. Man is still going to get beat if you have too much time to get around, unless everybody runs a curl and stands there, but that just isn't happening as much anymore. But if you have a lot of time in the pocket, your players are going to just be open, and you're going to carve up a defense, and your defense is going to get carved up. Now, I will say on that side of it, when I was playing defense, it did not feel much different than Madden 19.
Other than the linebacker stuff.
Which almost feels like a detriment on that side of the ball because now you can't run and cover all these players with all your linebackers as well. But that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. But if your pass rush isn't getting pressure, then what's the alternative than playing lurk with a linebacker? Because these guys are going to get open if your pass rush isn't doing it. And I felt like even with some of my blitzes, my pass rush did not feel as strong as when the computer was pass rushing against me.
Okay.
Like it was consistent against me that they were getting that pressure on me. I felt like their quarterbacks had an extra 2 seconds comparatively. Now, I never had an X Factor defensive lineman. I don't even know if I ever had a superstar defensive lineman.
And you were playing, though, with Arizona.
I started, I was playing with Arizona.
Yeah.
But I also played a little bit. Oh, you know what? I played a little bit with San Diego, too.
Okay, so a little bit better offensive line there. Okay.
But I didn't play as much. They definitely, I didn't get sacked as much with them. On defense, I didn't play as much defense that time because I was checking out some offensive things. But the pass rush there didn't feel any different, and they've got a Bosa on their line, right? So I am curious to see, will my rushers get the same benefits as the rushers of the CPU? And if how is our league going to adapt? Because we have some guys that really like to throw the ball downfield. Chad, that's what he does. And he's not going to be able to. He's going to get sacked and lose large yardage every time. And, maybe he goes and gets a scrambling quarterback for that reason. Quarterback motion felt much better in the game.
Okay.
So, hard to say, And, look, I know maybe that sounds like a back and forth on how good the gameplay is actually going to be. Maybe that's a testament to how bad the gameplay has actually been on Madden 18 and Madden 19. I got done with Madden 20 beta, went and played Madden 19, and was like, how do I live with this?
After watching all the video and stuff that I have, I know in our league, so right now we're in the playoffs, and I don't want to even play. I know it sounds it's not a detriment or anything like that because of our league or anything like that, but it's just like I'm over, Madden 19. I'm kind of, it's run its course in my brain, and I could see that on the horizon, less than a month away. I mean, it's about a month away, with the 3rd of August-ish.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I want to point out about this, too, that I was thinking about earlier today, and I was listening to some of our former podcasts where we were talking about finding the right balance, and we talked about the balance between good animations to make it look good, but also it playing right to feel good for the player. And we talked about it has maybe trying to create authentic tackles and things. Did that hurt the game by creating too many animations or making these animations too long? And that seems really cleaned up, and it was something that we suggested that Guerrero might have been able to help them with, which he clearly didn't because he's not there anymore. But I kind of want to point this out. So we've talked about Rex Dixon a lot, especially this year after he left Madden. And a lot of people look at...
We love you, Rex.
We love you, Rex. You're not going to love this statement, though, because a lot of people look at the direction Madden went with Madden 19 and were like, bring Rex back. And it was funny because some people were like, we started a petition to bring Rex back. And Rex retweeted it and was like, do you remember the petition you started to get me fired? Because the same guy had tried a campaign to get him fired at one point. So we kind of had this golden halo around Rex of trying to remember him fondly because he was a good guy. And he said he was focused on gameplay and that Madden producers didn't care about gameplay. They just wanted to add back-of-the-box features that, as we see, get abandoned every year. Rex worked on Madden 19. He was technically the creative director for Madden 19, and he was technically the lead gameplay designer for Madden 19. This is the first Rex-free game. It has the best gameplay of any Madden that's come out on this console. Crickets chirping, right? So, is that Rex? Is that because Rex didn't do a good enough job? Is that because he was getting sabotaged? What changed? You know, I don't know. I'm just pointing it out, just making an observation. Rex was everybody's gameplay guy. Everybody thought that. A lot of people making comments that if Rex was there, we want Rex to be able to focus on gameplay. Okay, well, we got Clint Oldenburg and Michael Young, and what's better? Gameplay is better. Gameplay is better, and there was no Rex involved at all.
Yeah, they changed the production cycle.
Yeah,
that's really, I think,
that's the big thing.
This has an emphasis on gameplay. Finally taking the step back to do that, and one can argue, the reasons as to why or whatnot, because you don't have long shot or anything like that in it. Well,
you got QB1.
You got QB1, which is so. I don't know how much production that's taken away, or if that was outsourced, like long shot, or we'll see.
We'll see. But I can promise you this: gameplay is better. The other thing everybody's concerned about is will feedback from the beta from fans who disagree with things about how the gameplay played impact it. Like a lot of people said last year that what they saw at EA Play and on the beta was different from what the game that came out in a bad way. And so a lot of people are afraid that that's going to be the case here. I can't comment on that. That's all going to be speculation. I understand why people don't trust EA and Tiburon, but hopefully if the gameplay is like this when it comes out, it's going to be really good. Kind of going along that line, X Factors are in the game now. I mentioned X Factors a couple times. I personally thought this added some depth to the gameplay as well as some depth to franchise mode because one of the things that happens each week when you have top-of-the-line X Factors on the other team is your coordinators, in quotes, because there are no coordinators in the game, obviously, will come to you, and it's just a picture of, like, it's a blank picture, and it looks like a text message bubble, and it says offensive coordinator, and says, hey, what are we going to do about Bobby Wagner? So it creates a story element, creates a narrative around how you're going to play that game. And I think they could tighten that up a little bit. There's a few things that could tighten that up, but that's a part of the scenario engine, too, as a whole. Yes, that's right, the scenario engine.
We had this discussion in our pre-recording. Is it scenario or is it scenario?
And I'm going scenario.
I'm a scenario person rather than a scenario person.
Well,
but I also say direction rather than direction. I also say crick rather than creek.
I'm going to direct you to the fact that I'm right about scenario.
Okay.
If you don't like it, you can jump into a creek.
Crick. Okay. So yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Well, scenario engine to me is, and if you go read the blog, I think you'll see that I touched on this. Actually, if you read the blog, it sounds like I hate scenario engine because I critiqued it. But I think scenario engine is a foundational thing that could impact EA Sports video games for a long time. Scenario engine creates narrative, and narrative is incredibly important in sports games. Case in point, okay? The St. Louis Blues go from last place to first place and win the Stanley Cup, right? This is what happened in real life. That is great story. That's a great story. And scenario engine is the thing that can help us put stories like that in the game. Now, obviously, the team has to do it, but like if they can play on different aspects of the sport and what's going on and making a trade or getting a player to up in a dev trait through the scenario engine, then they should do it. I think creating narrative is really important. And you look at who's the head of this now, right? We said Michael Young is the creative director. Michael Young wrote Long Shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was one of the co-writers. This was his baby. He understands that narrative is important. And so I'm hoping that as long as he's there, they're going to continue to build on Scenario Engine. He also talked about Scenario Engine being one of the few things that can get live updates in franchise mode. Kind of like we can see live updates with audio in franchise mode, but like you can't really update the rosters during a franchise season because it impacts all of your development. Like you can't just change it. You can't go with that. I was having this discussion with somebody on Twitter the other day. They're like, well, they're just going to, we were talking about the rookie ratings. And they're like, they're just going to change these as the season goes on. I was like, yeah, but I start a franchise in August.
Yeah.
So they're stuck with whatever they come out with as.
Yeah.
Except that I can go in and edit it as a commissioner before we start. And it's the league approves on something like that. So anyway, narrative is important to me. And they create narrative with a scenario engine around player interactions, playing against the other team. There's some cool stuff in there. I wish I'd seen more of it. A lot of people felt like it was limited, like there wasn't enough scenarios that popped up. And the question is that because it was a beta, or is it because you should temper your expectations? Antonio Brown doesn't demand a trade every year. That's an every doesn't. Like 4 years thing for players, right? These guys, this isn't happening every year. We want to see these cool stories come out, but you also aren't going to have a scenario, this is probably the more prevalent thing that happens in the NFL, about one of your star players being under investigation for spousal abuse, right? You can't put that in this game. You just can't. It's E for everyone, and it's important that it stays that way.
Yeah.
So you can't put those types of scenarios in. You can't put steroids, people getting suspended for steroids in there, I don't think. I don't
think the NFL would allow any of that.
Right, exactly. So you can't have that. So I think you have to temper your expectations on what's happening. Other times it's because it's how do you play your game? If your top wide receiver gets 100 catches a year, he's not going to demand a trade, especially if you're winning.
Unless you're Antonio Brown or you get, but
right.
It's those one-offs, and those are a whole nother thing.
Exactly.
Wide receivers are divas, so it happens occasionally with wide receivers.
Yeah.
Done.
Right? Holdouts would be cool to see, but again, NFL probably will put a kibosh on that. They don't want their players depicted as being unwilling to play, but whatever. I think that this is really important. And one of the other things, it's going to play into QB1 and play as a player, I think, in a bigger way than it plays into franchise mode right now. I think it could have a lot more impact once we get to the point of having coaching carousel back in the game. Some of those things, and having better, maybe more dynamic owner goals would be something that would make Scenario Engine kind of pop, feel more dynamic. But I think it's a really important thing. And as you go through, like I go and I drafted a quarterback, like it would have been really cool to have a Scenario Engine conversation with my owner about what quarterback am I going to start? Am I going to start Phillip Rivers, or am I going to take the 74 overall rookie, which, as we've seen, is really high for a rookie, who may or may not be an X-Factor player. He's either a superstar or an X-Factor player, but we won't know until he plays 500 downs, and he's not going to play 500 downs in preseason. So maybe we force Phillip Rivers into retirement, and then maybe Phillip Rivers asks for a trade because we're going with this guy to see if he's going to be the next big X-Factor player. Like, that created a really cool narrative moment for me. And a lot of Madden guys, a lot of sports guys do it for themselves already. They're already in their head watching the ESPN segment where somebody's talking about, what are the Chargers going to do? Are they going to go with this young hotshot, or are they going to keep Phillip Rivers in? Is he too old? What do you say? What's the poll? So we're already doing it on our own. If Scenario Engine can give us more to go with on that, I think it'll be great. Your Twitter feed is still hidden in your news, thing. So like you kind of have that little Twitter feed across the bottom, but your story stuff is still really kind of back burner. So I think they need to bring that to the forefront with Scenario Engine.
It's not organic. Right.
You have to go looking for it. Well,
yeah.
I'm not going to look for a story. You need to put that story in my face, So I like the Scenario Engine. I thought it was good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out on a finished product, even though no video games come out finished anymore. But I digress. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out in a finished product, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out with a 6-man league. How's that going to impact the way we play against each other?
Also, how does it impact those other teams? You know, like the development that's going on those other teams, and how Chad wants to acquire them, and
yeah, exactly.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's Scenario Engine. I do want to mention the rating spread a little bit too, because we kind of talked about it a little bit already, but the rating spread and the drafting didn't feel bad to me. I think I told you that I took like a 64 overall quarterback and Kyler Murray, who didn't play, and that wasn't his final rating either. He was a superstar developer. He didn't play, but only half of the first season for me. He played the second and third seasons. I simulated a lot of games. Even with his really low rating, he had games where he was player of the week when I simulated it. And he finished with a 70. When I finished, he was up to a 70, I think a 71, 72 overall after 2.5 seasons of being the starter. That's not bad. That's not a terrible thing. And I think we're going to have to see how other guys rate in the league. But on top of that, I was effective with him when I did play the games.
And that's my biggest thing is I don't care if the guy's rated 50, 70, 90. How effective is he?
Exactly.
And how you're using him.
Right. And I didn't see a way to increase depth traits for quarterbacks. So that'll be an interesting conversation as well. But if you think about some of the things we complain about with Madden 18 and 19, there's sometimes it felt like there was, I don't know, like certain players couldn't compete because of their rating. And we didn't think that was really right, you know?
Yeah.
And you and I we talked about this a lot. Like, we start with pretty low-level teams and build our way up, and the guys we're playing against start with really high teams and trade for all the 99 overalls, right? So that's one of those things that I feel like we're going to be more competitive with our lower-rated teams this year, which is good because we win then on scheming based off of the strengths of the team as opposed to just getting the best overall players that can play a number of different schemes.
Yeah.
So I think the rating spread is awesome. Here's the problem with the rating spread. Who really understands that it's a thing? We know that it is because we watched the little video, but players are upset at their ratings. People who are watching these rookie ratings are reacting very poorly when they see what these guys are rated because they base it on things like what were players rated last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, the rating system got a change up where players are just rated lower, but I don't think a lot of your fan base understands that that's what's happening or can see a bigger picture on that. You know,
they don't realize the changes that are being made,
right?
That kind of thing. They just look at what it previously has been.
And that comes down to communication. And I will say that they're doing their best with communication. People got upset in the beta about how slow it felt like quarterbacks released the ball. They released a blog article about why it felt that way. And they were like, animations take longer when you throw it down the field. They take longer when you throw it to the outside of the hash marks. They take longer when you throw it in a direction that your feet aren't facing. That's what we did. And they kind of broke it down, and it makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't work with every quarterback, though.
Right, and that's why they have different abilities for some of them. But, yeah.
That was a foreshadow.
Yeah. So they are doing a little bit better with that communication piece. But, again, dev notes are buried on EA's website. If you're not following Andre Weingarten on Twitter, you're not going to see that piece.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem, and they need to figure out how to mass market those changes to make sure that everybody knows why they changed it and what, what the difference is. You put a big sticker on the box, more realistic ratings, because that's what you're pitching it as.
Yeah.
Whether or not you got more realistic ratings is another question, but make that a back of the box sticker. Make sure people understand why you did it.
Or the video, the hype video or whatnot for it. Just have say all new, player rating system.
Yeah.
Boom, done. One little thing that flashes across the screen before Mahomes throws his no-look pass 90 yards down the field.
Right.
Sorry, exaggeration.
Right, exaggeration, but not. It's 80 yards, I guess.
He could throw a 90.
He could. Right. Well, that takes us kind of into the ratings conversation because we do have ratings now for rookies. We're going to get the 99 Club here next week, and then we're going to get full ratings a week after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we have rookie ratings now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yeah. Nate, how do you feel about the rookie ratings, Nate?
Okay, so this is where my positivity comes through is having that. I like the idea of having a more varied amount of ratings, right?
Yeah.
I'm not meant to understand all the logic. I'm not meant to agree with all of the ratings that are in there because I don't agree with all of them. I'm not a scout, nor are the two individuals who actually create the ratings.
No, they are definitely not scouts.
So, and if anybody has read that article or anything like that,
Great article on ESPN.
Yeah, it's actually really good. And it gave me a little bit more insight into that and peeking through the cubicle. But basically, you have two individuals who are making these. So it's a lot of work. I get that. But here's my biggest thing with it is we are human. We're still going to have favorites. I am no exclusion to that.
That's true.
Okay. I've been talking Drew Lock since we started this podcast.
Since he was a freshman, we've been talking about what was he going to be rated in Madden.
And so the 2 years that we've ran, almost 2 years to almost. Okay, so what is it? 23 months. Not quite 2 years. We're about 23 months in to this podcast.
Yeah.
Any scout, and these people know people within the industry or whatnot. Well, to a degree, I guess. And I don't have to agree with everything. And I understand that you're trying to rank them basically within not only the position, but within the rookies. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tim actually sends me this text or whatnot about Drew Lock's rating because I'm a Drew Lock homer and everything, and I'm not happy with this throw power thing. I understand once I think I'll have a better understanding of it once I see more of it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you're going by sheer metrics, sheer combine stuff and everything like that, Drew Lock was not throwing the lasers down the field in the combine that he does in a game. For me, throw power, and maybe that's where just my philosophy is a little bit different, is not only how far you could do it, but it's a trajectory thing, right?
Yeah, that would make sense to me. And maybe also it might impact how quickly it comes out of your hand.
Yeah, and Drew Lock, and that's the reason why I was hey, a delayed going downfield or whatnot. Drew Lock doesn't have to wind up to go downfield. It's very quick, bang, bang, bang. that kind of thing. It's going to be very difficult to get his own throwing mechanics completely as is within the game frame. I understand that part. But at least give the guy better than 88.
Yeah.
And I understand the 88. Like, in last year's version, I would have put him in that 95 to 97 range.
Yeah. Last year, I would say an 88 was unusable for a quarterback.
And that's understandable. But you put him actually one behind Dwayne Haskins, who's an 89. And the knock on Dwayne Haskins was a lot of people had questions about his arm strength.
Yeah.
Scouts, the last month and there's a lot of smoke screens and now granted, Dwayne Haskins can throw the ball.
I don't think anybody's disputing that.
Okay. And he's got a pretty darn good arm.
Yeah.
But I do not think that it's on the same level as Drew Lock's. I don't see him throwing a pass that's only 15 feet off the air, 45 yards down from the opposite hash,
right?
Against Arkansas his junior year. And I saw that in person, and then I see the highlight of it, and I'm like, oh, wow.
That was a big deal.
That is a trajectory thing. There's hardly any loft on it. That's the thing. Seeing it in person, them come back during that game, I was like, oh, that kind of thing. And now I've seen Drew throw it 70 yards, that kind of thing. Those are going to have more loft to them because it's 70 yards downfield. But not everybody can make that throw, even in the NFL. And I guess that's my little argument is that goes back to, okay, well, there's still a human behind that desk trying to do their best to look at that film. Many of these people they have never seen in person. Right. Now, I know that Andre tries to make it to a game or two here or there, that kind of thing, it sounds like. I don't know about the other ratings adjuster, equipment guru. Isn't that? Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I'm starting to get all my... who's actually a native of Missouri, by the way.
Yeah, Kansas City.
He grew up around the same area that Drew Lock did. But, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, well, I want to have a positive outlook on it. I would never want to do this because of the scrutiny that you're under from all these fans. I get that. Like, people want their people the highest that they can. But I also think that favoritism often plays into it. And this is the second year in a row that I've seen some of this happen. Last year I would say that Lamar Jackson his throw power was overrated. Yes, he can throw the ball long, but if you look to hash mark, like it's not the same as you have with some of these elite, like Aaron Rodgers, hash mark to hash mark down the field is going to have a completely different trajectory. And honestly, we're only going to talk about quarterbacks here. I'm just joking. But the main thing is like, I can't really give that feedback. I don't know how, because I want to be respectful to them. I don't want to just tell them, hey, I've scouted this person more than you have. But in the case of a couple of these players, I have. And I'm no more qualified. That's the difference. But I'm also not making the ratings for a player. I understand they've got to kind of rank them and everything like that. I'm trying to be as positive as I can here.
Right. Well,
it's just one of those things. It's like there's going to be favoritism within that. And definitely Tim will get more into that. But, like, out of your rookies, you shouldn't have a second-round tight end who is rated ahead of a first-round tight end as one of your top, 10 rookies, right? And we're talking about Irv Smith here.
Yeah, Irv Smith over Noah Fant, right?
Yeah. like, obviously, Noah Fant is not a blocker. I understand that. But, like, there's some ratings adjustments there that I just don't quite understand.
Let's go back to the quarterback thing a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about that ESPN article, because there's some really good information in it that tells us how they came up with some of these quarterback things. Okay, Kyler Murray has an 89 throw power as opposed to Drew Lock's 88. Would you say that?
I'm thinking that they're in the same ballpark.
So you think that Drew Lock should at least be an 89 then? So here's a professional quarterback that has an 89 throw power in this year's game. Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think that those three all fit in that?
He's got a pretty good arm, more loft. He's more Dwayne Haskins, right?
Okay.
Pretty good arm, but more loft. How quickly does it get there? That's what I'm kind of getting after.
Yeah. So
to me, that's what arm strength is.
And you got to ask then, what's your other metric for that in the game than throw power? I don't know that there is one.
Yeah.
But you look at like how they create their quarterbacks. There were some interesting things in there that they talked about. So they were trying to put Kyler Murray's short passing in, right? And Dustin Smith, he's the equipment guru. Says he says, based on what we're seeing, I'm going to immediately make a decision on short and probably put it at 87, 88. And Weingarten's like, well, hey, that's pretty high. And he's like, well, yeah, I know it is. So is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's got an 87. And Weingarten says, yeah, but that's Darnold's strength. I would not describe short accuracy as Murray's strength. And Dustin Smith responds, I know, it should be his deep ball. Here's where he loses me. But we can't put his deep ball as the strength. That would literally break the entire mold of how we do quarterbacks. So it doesn't matter if deep ball is his strength. You're not going to give him a high deep ball ability because he's a rookie, right? And the deep ball rating is supposed to be lower than the other ratings. And Weingarten's response to it too. So I think that's pretty telling. You kind of got like a textbook on how you're doing this. But then Weingarten responds, isn't that exactly what Kyler Murray is doing when it comes to breaking the mold of how we do quarterbacks? Isn't that what Kyler... So here's the thing. Kyler Murray, one of the best rated guys in the rookies in the game, best rated rookie quarterback in the game. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying he's going to be good. He looks like a good player. But
he's got an 82 short accuracy, by the way.
Yeah, that's what they landed on. Doesn't that sound like they personally really like him?
Yeah.
Like, would you say that he's a mold-breaking quarterback? Because I probably wouldn't. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he has potential to be a great quarterback. But he's also a short quarterback. He fits in existing molds. He fits in a Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson mold. He fits he could even fit into a Drew Brees mold possibly somewhere down the road. He's not a new mold.
He's a little bit different.
Right.
In that his legs are dynamic.
Sure.
Russell Wilson's really good, at that, but he doesn't have the speed that Murray does.
Fair enough.
But also, Russell Wilson makes more than one read.
But I think this is where...
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Russell Wilson makes more than one read, which is why he's going to have a better awareness accuracy, But I guess for me, what that highlights for me is, and we already knew this, they have favorites.
Yeah.
And the other thing this article highlights is it's two guys. It's two people who are making this decision. Two people are deciding the ratings for every... Their thoughts are the only thoughts that matter on the ratings for these rookies and for all these other players. And let's take a look at their qualifications real quick before we go even further with this ratings conversation. Because this actually... Look, I appreciate and I respect the work that they put in.
Yeah.
I disagree with some of the results. Okay? And I think that's fair and I think that's all right. What I'm going to say now might sound disrespectful. And maybe you think it is. I'm sorry if that's what you think. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I simply mean to try to point out that I think EA should go hire professional scouts to help do this at a higher level. Because here are your qualified guys. You've got a 23-year-old Andre Weingarten, better known as Moonlight Swami, who is a franchise YouTuber who just graduated from a little school in, is it Alabama or Arkansas, one of those southern states, a little known school.
He transferred from Hofstra.
From Hofstra. Smart guy. Nobody's debating that. He's a smart guy, and he's brought some really cool things with some numbers games that he brought over to how they do the ratings. I get it. He's made improvements. But he just graduated with a degree in sports science. That's not scouting. He's not a scout. He's not a pro scout.
Even though they call him that in the article.
Right.
But
he is a 23-year-old armchair scout who has been watching a lot of football and playing a lot of Madden.
yeah.
Okay? Look, he's probably better than your average Joe. But he is not a professional scout. He is not a professional scout. He's closer to being one, though, than 34-year-old Dustin Smith, a.k.a. the equipment guru, who, again, I don't dislike either of these gentlemen, and I appreciate all the hard work they do. But Dustin's background that they brought up multiple times in this ESPN article is not his journalism experience or his extensive scouting experience. No, it's the fact that he worked as a valet in multiple states. He was a valet in Kansas City. He was a valet in Louisiana as a game tester. How did he get hired at EA? He had an attention for detail around equipment. That's why he's the equipment guru. They hired him to fill that role, and he came on to help Donnie Moore do the ratings. Donnie Moore, though, was the guy who did ratings, and he was just there as an assistant. He spent less than a year with Donnie Moore in that role before he took over the entirety of this. And he single-handedly had been doing the ratings for several years before Weingarten came on as a staffer. So here's what I'm trying to say. This is why I feel like EA needs to take another look at this. And this is why I say that every complaint about the ratings is in fact valid, because we are as qualified as they are to make these ratings, to make these decisions, with the exception of we've not had the tutorial from Donnie Moore. That's it. That's it. That's it. So I can go to a steakhouse right now, and the guy who parks my car,
Ruth Chris
Steakhouse, and the valet who's parking my car is qualified to give me the ratings for the things. Now look, I get it. It sounds disrespectful. I get it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and I know I sound like I'm getting a little louder. I'm speaking a little bit faster. It just boggles my mind that this is where we are with this. Also, that there are some people out there that feel like we don't have a right to critique how these ratings are made, who's making those ratings, and what the end results are. I have every right to critique these ratings based off my extensive retail background, because that's all it takes, right? That's all it takes. All right. So anyway, in honesty, look, these guys are great guys. They seem like good people. They work very, very hard.
Yes.
Good for you. They get better with time. I'm sure of it. I'm sure they're getting better at it. But you and I talked about this a little bit in a previous episode where we talked about, are they willing to admit that they're wrong? Are they willing to take criticism and critique? And sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. And, somebody will call something out like, how come this guy ended up with a faster speed despite running a slower 40? And they'll bust out sarcasm on that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Yeah, the sarcasm thing doesn't help.
The questions we have about the ratings are fair. Okay. Drew Lock has an 88 throw power. I probably, based off of where I'm seeing and what you're saying, I probably would put him at a 90. Okay. Last year, there were over 50 players with a 90-plus throw power. This year, there are only 18. One of them, who I bet you is going to be top 6 quarterbacks for throw power, is undrafted free agent Tyree Jackson.
Who worked out, by the way, with Drew Lock.
Yeah, worked out with Drew Lock, who
Jordan
has
Palmer.
a ridiculous 95 throw power. It's 6 points higher than the next quarterback in the rookie class. And he has like he has maybe a 1 point advantage or 2 point advantage overall over the 6th pick in the draft, Daniel Jones.
1 point overall compared to the 63 overall that Daniel Jones is.
And I think this is an example of how overalls maybe don't work right in the game. You know, some people.
I don't think that Daniel Jones is the 6th pick of the draft.
Right.
With
well,
any other team, but anyhow,
nobody thought Daniel Jones was the 6th pick of the draft, but
they picked their guy
as far as talent. But they took their guy based off what they scouted him as, and they got a heck of a lot more experience at it than two guys sitting over in an office in Tiburon. But beyond that, okay, well, Drew Lock was seen as a steal in the 2nd round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's, the 3rd highest quarterback in the game with a 67?
3rd highest quarterback in the game.
Okay.
3rd highest deep accuracy.
Right.
So good.
He's tied with a lot of people there at 88 with deep accuracy, but you're not playing.
He's at 80 deep accuracy.
Oh, 80 deep accuracy. I'm sorry, 88 throw power is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So you're not playing to his strengths the way you wanted to play to Murray's strengths.
Yeah, you're not taking in any kind of bias there.
Right.
So I would say, other than the arm strength, they did a pretty decent job. His short accuracy is 77.
Okay.
His medium accuracy is 79, and his deep accuracy is 80. I would say that's where I would kind of put it. I just have the one issue with throwing power. And that's really that's just from being around the game as long as I have, which I have almost 20 years on Andre there.
Sure.
And actually seeing every single snap of the guy's career.
Yeah.
And knowing his previous history even before college.
Yeah.
Which scouts do, by the way.
Scouts
and they have ratings, and they know these things, and they're like, oh, the guy didn't do any kind of like downfield reading or anything like that in high school. His first 3 years of college, he read one side of the field, essentially.
Yeah.
His 4th year is the only time whenever he actually was able to read the whole entire field.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. So 67, based off of this, probably not a bad rating, right? Tweak his throw power up 2 points. Maybe he becomes a 68. I don't think that's something to complain about. So
if 88's playable, I don't care.
Right. But when you take how you rated this guy and then you add Tyree Jackson, you add Daniel Jones to it, and you add some other things from some other positions in there, it becomes you have some questions. You're going to have some questions. And the unanswerable question right now, too, is what are their development traits? Because it doesn't matter what you rate the guy. The development trait determines whether or not you think he has a future in the NFL or you don't. So if you we already know Kyler Murray is going to be a superstar or X Factor player.
Yeah.
That's what he's going to be.
He's going to be.
He's going to be one of those.
He's got to be.
Right.
And he's probably going to be then an X Factor, is my guess.
Right. Daniel Jones is probably going to be a normal developer, right? If Tyree Jackson is a quick developer or a star developer, then you have a problem. If Drew Lock is a normal developer, then you have a problem, because what you're saying now is that this player, despite any of his abilities, this is as good as he's going to be. Yeah. Because he's never going to be a starter. He's not going to get enough reps to seriously develop over the course of a career. He is not going to be your starting quarterback ever. Now, I know, Forverts was telling me on Twitter that they've improved their ability to develop. And I talked to you a little bit about my experience with Kyler Murray, but if it took me that long to get a lower 60s player up to 70s, took me 2.5 seasons. Okay, I guess that could
It's
be
almost a
pretty,
lifetime of us
yeah.
playing the game, right? As a league.
Right, as a league, we're not getting through 30 seasons. Now, that's a personal thing. That's
Yeah.
on us, right? But at the
Yeah,
same
come
time,
on, Chad, play your game.
yeah, that's on us for only getting through 4 or 5 seasons. But
Yeah.
you know, I look at these things and I just ask why do you rate this way? Why do you give this and give this guy this? And
He's rubbing his eyes, by the way, because he's upset at it.
Yeah, also because I'm allergic to cats. But you know, it's just right. And so, like again, for as upset as I sound, I thought 67 was a fair grade. I think his throw power needed to be a little bit higher from
I'm
Drew
fine
Lock.
with it.
You know, but I don't see Tyree Jackson as being a better quarterback out the gate than Daniel Jones.
Yep.
And if overall doesn't matter, and also if overall doesn't matter, then why have it in the game to begin with? But because it's your ranking system. But going back to the feedback piece, going back to the receiving feedback about it, like I'm not about to go tell these guys to their face that I disagree with their things, because people were pointing this out and they're like, hey, Daniel Jones is not rated as high as Tyree Jackson. Why is that? Like, he's the 6th overall pick in the draft. The response? The higher pick doesn't always equate the better player. Okay.
An undrafted guy.
Okay. 32 teams passed on this guy 7 times at minimum.
They were both scouted.
Right. So there's clearly somebody sees something. People thought Daniel Jones was going to go in the draft.
And they thought he was going to go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Whether or not the Giants were the favorite or whatnot.
Right.
First 2 rounds.
So when you make a decision to take an undrafted free agent, rate him higher than the 6th pick in the draft, and then when people ask you why, your response is because, well, the 6th overall pick isn't always the best pick. What qualifies you to make that decision? Was it your extensive ability to parallel park? Because that's what your background is. And I'm sorry, I know I'm getting back into that territory of sounding disrespectful, so I apologize, but it is a fair question of me to ask. What made you qualified to determine that Tyree Jackson was a better player? And if you say that Tyree Jackson isn't a better player, then you need to fix your overall formulas, because it overall should indicate that Daniel Jones is the better player based off of what actual scouts have said. That's all I'm trying to say in that rant. Fair enough?
Yeah, I wish that this had more of like a baseball sabermetrics type. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the 70-point scale or whatnot that they do.
Very minimally.
But basically a 70 is exceptional.
Yeah.
Okay? A 60 is wow, that dude's going to be a star type thing at that if he fulfills that potential. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? It's a potential type thing. I call me devil's advocate or something like that.
Go for it.
I thought you were going to actually call me that.
Yes, devil, go ahead.
Why can't something like that be in here? I mean, why can't you develop a system since they're supposedly numbers guys, right?
Right.
Develop a system so that they could have that placement within there, and then do some of the micro adjustments. And we're talking about micro, not favoritism, but micro.
That's a good question. I don't know, man. I mean, what would that look like in the end?
I have no idea, but I mean, it's something different,
what
right?
you're describing is what I'd like to see in the scouting department in the game as a whole. But like, I thought about that. Like, scouts will give grades on people like an A+. What translates to an A+ in a rating on the game? And maybe they should release a chart that shows, like, these are what our overalls and our things. This is what they equate to on a scouts report card. You know, maybe that would add some transparency and create some understanding around the ratings.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing, I guess. You know, because it's something different. I'm trying to, good cop, bad cop. I'm trying to be a good cop here.
I like bad cop, worst cop.
Okay. So
I'm hyped up on caffeine too. So
basically, they've got a very tough job, but I do agree with a lot that Tim says about qualification. And yeah, I'll just leave that at that. Like, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the job or anything like that, but it does leave a void of how much that judgment, because it really is a judgment, can be taken into question. How do you go from a 87, short to an 82?
That's a really good question.
And it's just two people just going back and forth during that.
Right. There was no third party that we're aware of. That made that determination.
I don't know. I think that leaves the room for error because the human error, favoritism, and I'm not even going to mention that running back.
I would like to mention that running back. So let's talk about it. What's the running back's name?
Tony Pollard.
All right. So Tony Pollard,
the pride of Memphis.
Who
I actually saw play, by the way, who is pretty quick. He came in. Missouri played Memphis, by the way, this last year. So yes, I did get to see him and a little bit of Darrell Henderson, who I think Henderson should have faster speed. Pollard's fast. I'll give him that. He's kind of a shifty fast, though, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But
quick cuts, good acceleration.
He's good at acceleration. I'll give him that. Like they would have him on end arounds and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like they were just outclassed in that game, essentially by Missouri, who had better athletes.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So, do you want me to give the numbers, or do you want?
I don't have the numbers.
I have them in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to use an example, and he didn't play in this game. Emmanuel Hall didn't play in this game, but he ran a 4.42. Okay, at the combine. Surprisingly, they didn't give him good jumping, and he had one of the longest long jumps.
I wonder if their jumping is more vertical than it is.
Yeah. They did give Emmanuel Hall pretty good acceleration at 94.
Yes,
so I think that's what that long jump actually shows.
I saw his ratings actually pop up on Twitter, and I was like, "Ooh,
yeah,
I want that guy.
He's good." I'm gonna kick Tim in the nuts for that guy. Anyhow, but he has the same speed rating as Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, and I understand stomach, whatever, 4.52 at the combine.
Right.
Which is more accurate than a pro day.
Yes, it is.
By far.
Yeah.
And they're both 93. Discuss.
Right. So this came up on Twitter. Somebody asking about, why is this guy rated so high on speed when he's got this lower 40 time? And honestly, let's look at it. We've talked about this before. Those numbers from that event, gosh, that I just brain farted on.
Combine.
From the combine, thank you. Is what Madden uses, is what they've been using as their primary factor for determining a lot of these numbers, right? Now, they do look at other things, and we've assumed they look at other things for things. But the question becomes, when do you decide to look at other things? What other things do you look at, and why? And, they said, well, hey, funny story, that guy had a stomach bug, so he didn't run as well. But we look at game tape, and we looked at his pro day, and that's how we came up with his speed. Okay, cool. So what you're using then is an unreliable stopwatch time and the eyes of two people to make a determination on his speed. And you seem to have erred on the side of him being better than he could, rather than err on the side of him being worse than he is. You erred on the side of him being better than he maybe is. And the question on everybody's mind is, what team does that guy play for? Who drafted him?
Tell me, Tim, who drafted him?
Was it the Dallas Cowboys?
Who?
The Dallas Cowboys.
Who likes the Cowboys?
Well, that would be Dustin Smith, the guy who is in charge of the ratings. He's the head honcho there for the ratings that we've been talking about, that he works there with Andre. So this is a critique that he's gotten for the last several years, is why are the Cowboys always rated so high? Why are their players always so ridiculous? We talked about Sean Lee's rating last year and how high he was rated, because that seemed really ridiculous.
Yeah.
You look at it this year. Look, Leighton Vander Esch played really good football last year. Is he an X Factor player coming into his second year of the league? Probably not in the way that they've pushed X Factors.
I'd put him at star.
Star to superstar. That would be, I think superstar would be a fair stretch.
Yeah.
But he's got 1 year under his belt. You know who else is an X Factor? Byron Jones. Byron Jones has like 2 career interceptions.
But he's versatile.
But he's versatile. He's got a lot of pass deflections.
Is he a safety or is he a corner?
Yeah, and he's defensed a lot of passes.
He's a quarter safety.
I get it, but is he a guy that scares you when you go play a game against him?
No.
No, he's a good player. He's not a game-changing player, and that's the point of the X Factor. So you look at stuff like that, you see, it's even pointed out in the ESPN article, this guy's office is draped in Cowboys paraphernalia. We've all seen the pictures, and look, you like your team, you love your team, good for you. I think we all do. Stop telling me you're not biased towards the Cowboys, because you are.
You're not biased toward the Cowboys.
But you are. No, wait, was that the Cowboys or the Cow Comma Boys? Because you're probably not, those boys are probably not biased towards the cow, but I would say that he has the Cowboys bias. And again, are we venturing into the disrespectful territory, or am I venturing into it? Look, I'll let you be the judge of that at this point.
Again, that's where the human error can really, if I was a ratings adjuster, obviously Drew Lock, self-admittedly, I would probably have some higher ratings because I've seen him play in person.
Right.
I've seen every single game that he was away for, and I've actually gone to an away game. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things. I'm biased. Yeah. I acknowledge that. Now, me having a journalism degree, I realize that bias. So if I'm going to write something about that, I have to actually admit to that.
Yeah. For
one thing, okay? And trying to separate that's tough. That's where I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Good cop, better cop? I don't know.
Well, okay, let me get more on the side of good cop here. Now, with that all being said about the bias and stuff, I have seen some other players brought up where people had said, why would you rate this guy this high? The top wide receiver for out of the draft was Hollywood Brown, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And there were some people that were like, are you serious? And
he didn't run.
He didn't run.
At all.
But he's ridiculously fast in the game.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't run because of injury. So,
Big 12 didn't play defenses against him anyhow, but...
Right. Digression. But the response was very much this is what we felt was indicated by his game tape. And so they were doing it with more than just Cowboys players. Okay? They did it with more than just Cowboys players. But again, it's because this is what we, the two guys, felt about his game tape. So the two non-scouts felt this way about his game tape. That's how we got this rating. So there's just a lot of room for error here. And it makes you really wonder, how do you even give feedback about that? Because the responses I've seen so far have been, we're we're as right as we're going to be, and we'll wait till the games get played before we determine if we're off at all on them.
By the way, I'm going to bring up some of the statistics here, and since I did watch the game against Missouri in person and had a pretty good view of it, they would send Tony Pollard on end-arounds. He is already running. He gets a running start.
Right, it's a running start.
And yes, he averaged 9.4 yards per carry on 8 carries. He was not the leading rusher in that game for a reason. He was their kind of gadget guy. He's a gadget guy.
Yeah.
He's not a starter.
Yeah, I might go get him in our league.
I'm not.
I might.
I'm not.
Yeah, but I might.
I'm not. How about this? You go get him. I got Emmanuel Hall.
We'll see. I'm gonna go get Shaquem Grant. Man, shoot, he actually had a pretty good rating in the beta, so I'm hoping his rating is gonna stay up there.
He loves him some Shaquem Grant,
Yeah.
who was a gadget guy in college at Texas Tech.
And that's what I would use him as. He's a gadget guy for me.
You got to have a gadget guy, and I think I think the gadget guy is gonna kind of come back in this year's version.
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna be using people for their strengths as opposed to their overalls, and
Which plays right into what I like to do.
right, exactly. And I think that's going to be better. I think it is a move in the right direction. I think the ratings gap is a right move, even if I don't always agree with what the Raiders are putting up there.
But Bosa is rated lower than Ed Oliver. I mean, the list can go on and on of. Irv Smith as the 10th highest ranked. He's versatile. I'll give him that. He could block and run routes. Okay, yeah. And maybe that's what that comes into. But there's a reason why he was in the second round, right? I mean, there's a reason why Drew Lock was in the second round. But even Todd McShay, after he's drafted, is sitting there saying this is a great pick because he has one of the highest upsides potential of all the groups.
Which means he better be a superstar rated developer.
I would even deal with star. I mean, I'm not going to oversell it a little bit,
But I don't know. Like,
but if he's normal or quick, I'm going to be like.
I'm not saying that based off of me seeing him in person. I'm saying that if Todd McShay is telling me he's got some of the best upside as in the draft, then I need to take that seriously and not decide that I know more than Todd McShay because I'm really good at backing into a parking spot. Nate just closed his eyes and lowered his head. He's shaking his head at me. I'm sorry, Nate. I'm sorry, Dustin. Look, you're probably great with the valet thing. I think you work really hard. I'm not trying to be mean.
But you
are. But I am being a little bit mean, and I do apologize for that. But I do believe that our questions are fair ones.
Ryan Tannehill is going to know all about this, and he's going to be I get it. I'm going to go start for Tennessee this year.
Right. Good job, Ryan. We believe in you.
Go, Ryan. Do your thing down in Nashville. Sorry, I had to get that in there again. I mean, you could look at the lists. I mean, honestly, if you're listening to this, all 6 people, you could.
We're up to 7 with Deion Sanders Jr.
Oh, that's true. You could look at the list. I would actually put Darrell Henderson Jr. at a much higher level than Pollard, just to let you know.
Okay.
Henderson did go out with an injury in that game against Missouri. That's the reason why you don't see hardly any statistics. If you do look that up, he went out with an injury, and Missouri mopped up. Drew Lock threw only 4 incompletions. 6 incompletions. He was 23 for 29, with four touchdowns and 350 yards.
Nice.
So anyhow, on a pretty nice day, actually, it was nice and sunny. Sorry, I remember weird details like that. It's my attention to detail.
Hey, you apply for a job at EA.
Anyhow,
Thanks for moving on. Thank you.
but I I hope that these, like, I hope the development traits, to kind of reiterate what we've said over and over and over again. I just hope that I could develop these players. Like, I don't want to have to go against the Chads of the world consistently. That's been one of my frustrations with this year. Sorry if you hear some thunder or whatnot. It's starting to kind of come down or whatnot. But this is the way that I think it should be with the ratings. Like, I think there actually should be even more disparity. Like, just looking at this, like seeing Quentin Williams at Quinnen Williams at 80 overall. Maybe that's a bit high.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's more of a 78. I mean, if you're gonna give your first pick in the draft who you think is going to be an X factor dynamic quarterback at 73.
Well, they've actually had some conversation about this. One of the things that they were encouraging people not to do is compare players across position.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, and that's where that comes into where does he rank among his position of interior defensive lineman?
Exactly. Like, I know some people question some of the linebackers about where they were rated because the linebackers were down there in the 73, 74s overall.
I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah. And the response was, well, they actually rate in the top 30 overall linebackers, which means they're a starter on on several teams. So yeah, so you kind of have to keep those comparisons in. And I think, like when we look at Drew Lock, we're not looking at Drew Lock versus last year's Ryan Tannehill. We're looking at Drew Lock versus this year's Kyler Murray.
Yeah. And we're just trying to cross-reference within the positional groups.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting whenever you get inside versus outside defensive linemen. It's interesting. It'll be also interesting if they have Josh Allen still listed as a left end because he's a linebacker hybrid. He's a pass rusher, but with Telvin Smith now being out, does he just because he can actually cover? By the way, I've seen him play obviously as well for the 3 years that he's played.
I think it also raises a question about are the outside linebacker and defensive end positions and defensive tackle positions antiquated as far as what Madden uses for position? Should they be edge rushers as opposed to a left end or a left outside linebacker? Like what, or is Madden just really working on the archetypes to help differentiate that? Yeah. I think that's something that should be looked at. I don't know what the right answer is, though.
I'm not looking, I guess, for a right answer. I'm just looking for playability, hopefully some equilibrium.
Yeah.
And I have a positive outlook on it. Honestly, if this year's Madden doesn't do it's really tough to keep going. But for the sake of our 6 listeners, I would try.
Yeah, 7 listeners, remember.
7, now, 7.
And I want to say again, I said at the beginning, talking about the beta, this is the best gameplay Madden that I've played on this console. And it's actually the deepest franchise mode on this console as well. It's just unfortunate that that's not saying a lot.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, when I say that, I mean, it's got things in it that we didn't have before. The game...
Oh, like up to 5 slots that you could trade?
No, trades are exactly the same.
7?
No, there's still 3 slots. and the that isn't great still. But, but trades are still in the game. They didn't remove them so they could put them back in next year as a new trait. But, I think when you look at some of the little things that they did do, it makes it a little bit deeper. I think when we look at development looks really cool. X Factors are cool. Developing an X Factor player looks really cool. So there are those little things. Scenario engine, whatever you want to call it, looks really cool. Like these things
it's like Sicario, but it's scenario.
They add depth. Also, I don't think I touched on this. I don't know if I told you about this, Nate, or if you read about it, but the sleeves, arm sleeves.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
arm sleeves, and this is the stuff that Dustin Smith does well.
I like sleeves.
Yeah. So, arm sleeves
Drew Lock wears one.
have a number attached to them. Did you know that? So, when you edit a player and you put sleeves on them, they have a number rating that you put on the arm sleeve. And here's how it works. If you rate the arm sleeve at a 45, then the player will only wear sleeves in 45-degree or less weather. If you put it at 75, it's at 75-degree or less weather, which creates an ability for you as a player to determine when your player is going to wear sleeves and when they're not going to wear sleeves.
They're always going to wear sleeves. And sorry.
Right. You're going to put it at 100, right? But it's a tiny detail.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool one, and it's a great immersion piece, and it's one of the things that Dustin Smith does really well is how he handles that equipment stuff. That's why he's the equipment guru. Mm-hmm. You know, so
no socks, no show. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah. So it's the deepest mode. It's the deepest it's ever been. QB1 is coming, which is going to be a pre-franchise mode that lets you take over as a quarterback, and then you go into franchise as a quarterback player. That'll be interesting to see. So, like, it is a deeper franchise mode, but it's still not nearly as deep as it needs to be. It's not as deep as other games on the market were 3 years ago.
Yeah. And especially, we're not going to go into this probably a whole lot or whatnot, but it's something worth at least highlighting is you could go read about all the revisions that NHL 20 is doing to their franchise mode.
Yeah.
And boy, it just, like, maybe we should just start a hockey league.
Well,
call it the blue line or something like that.
Okay, well, here's the thing. And see, here's where this is where your NHL guys get pissed off at NHL 20. There is no online leagues in NHL 20.
I was just joking.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
But it would still be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there are a couple things. Everybody that plays Madden was upset when they heard the term coaching carousel for NHL 20 because they're like, that's our thing. That was an NCAA. Why do you have it? Why does NHL 20 have coaching carousels, player morale, coaching schemes that impact player morale, as well as, what was the other one? Look at my note here real quick.
They have new broadcasting.
Chemistry. Between players. So chemistry and morale that's impacted by player personality and coaches' schemes. Those things all are in this game. You can have up to 8 coaches between your two teams, your NHL team and your Farm League AHL team, or it's AHL. And, where's that in Madden? It's not there. And they had to revamp their entire morale system for this, which is a big deal because Madden, for the first time in ever, is talking about player morale. Do you know what player morale is in Madden 20? It's player confidence, just with a new name.
Yeah.
It's the exact same system. So, NHL 20 is on Frostbite. Tiburon, Mike Young, get on the phone, call those guys in Canada and say, fax me your information. We want to know how you did this and how you put it in the game. That's the whole reason EA's got you on Frostbite, is so you can share this technology.
Yeah, if you're not going to collaborate, or would that be?
Yeah, collaboration.
Collaborate.
You stop and then you collaborate and then you listen.
Anyhow, I'm lipping the whole song here, but yeah, I mean, then again, like, it hasn't happened thus far, but no excuses now.
Really, you have none. But you didn't have any before.
Yeah, but you could make them.
Yeah. Fog of War scouting would be nice. I mean, you kind of have it with the X Factor thing, but that's not scouting. That's after you draft a player. So
I do like that idea of having a hidden type development trait type thing.
Yeah.
I also can see how it could be really annoying too.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyhow, I'm going back and forth and
We're
back. Oh, sorry.
we're starting to go long here, so we should probably wrap this up.
I'm starting to sing, so that's
I think
bad.
in a nutshell, Madden 20 gameplay is better. Franchise mode is there. Dustin Smith can park cars really well. Am I leaving anything out?
Tim's a good cop? I don't know.
Nope, definitely not the good cop in this scenario.
No, but yeah, I think that really wraps it up.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Hopefully you got a nice home in Nashville, and wish the best for you.
And thank you, Jason, who was on our last episode
Yes.
for our draft special. And I know he'll listen to this.
Maybe.
I'm sure he will.
Okay. Anyhow, it's been fun. It's been real. And Chad, play your game.
Play your game.